Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is In A Barbie World,
The podcast where we look at every Barbie movie from 1987 to the present day.
from fairy tales to literary classics.
From Mariposa to Mermaidia.
It's time to get unboxed,
Readjust your lippy.
rock the ball gown.
And let's get our Barbie on.
Barbie, a fairy secret.
Yay.
So it's directed by William Lau. We've got Diana Carina doing the voice of Barbie again. And we're still in this sort of phase 2 where Barbie is Barbie and Barbie is an actress who stars in movies. And I mean,
Yeah.
oh my god, like they're just getting better and better. Like
It's like I think we call it a shared universe with the previous film. So all the characters is but the filmmakers are at great pains to say this isn't a sequel. This just happens to be the same people from the previous movie in a different story. So don't go looking for continuity errors and things like that. It's just
and like a few questions, but none that are like distracting my enjoyment, which was, I mean, we got really excited when we read the synopsis for this one because basically Ken is kidnapped by fairies, but remember we're in the real world here and Barbie is a movie star, and yet her fashion stylists are real life fairies, not the fairies that Barbie was playing in Fairytopia. These are real fairies, which begs the question, do they have notes on the way that the fairy kingdoms were portrayed in the Barbie movies? Now that we know that fairy kingdoms actually exist.
Going back to Barbie and the Nutcracker, this is Inception level. What the hell? Yeah. But of course,
it's amazing.
It's but it has no. Oh yeah. No. Let's just go through in the normal way because there's so many levels to this, but at the end of the day, this is the same Barbie, the same Raquel, the same Ken as we saw in the last film. Although, and the last film happened because it kind of gets referenced.
Yep.
But it's also it's a bit like if you're a comic book like an American comic book reader. That sort of loose-ish approach to continuity when you have different writers. So yeah, it's all the same, but it's a little bit different, and we'll retroactively change little bits. But anyway, doesn't matter. It was good.
Oh my god, it was so good. We open with a really fun credit sequence that establishes that her stylists are fairies, but she doesn't know. With a freaking great song, because that has become the norm now. Like, they all have their own little song, and they're amazing. I will say the trouble with fashion dolls is that they will always be dated. Like, they're like, wow, Barbie, we're putting you in the latest fashion. And they're in this, like, ghastly mid-2000s short dress with like a belt, like a chunky belt, and it like you're like, oh no, that looks awful.
It looks so 2011. I mean, luckily
2011 called.
Luckily, that sort of thing, I never think I've ever seen anyone who's dressed like anybody in a Barbie movie anyway. But I think, like you spoke last time, I think you mentioned, there's this style of dress or this colour or that kind of, it doesn't mean anything to me, but I think it, if you understand your fashion or your history, it will mean a lot more to you. And it as you absolutely rightly say, it's like watching Fame, isn't it now? Who wears leg warmers and leotards like that now? But it doesn't mean it any less valid.
It doesn't detract, and if anything, it now adds a layer of like nostalgia, and it places it in a time which is lovely, in the same way that like a flip phone will do that.
It's charming and nostalgic is the right, and it's it's 11 years old. Getting on for
that
on
means
for 12.
I'm older than 11 years old. That's awful. So Barbie's been in a movie along with her actor boyfriend Ken and her co-star Raquel that we met very briefly in the previous movie, that was only there to like cause the like Ken subplot, and then she like pieced out and we never saw her again. Here, she's here to stay.
Yeah,
And
and
oh
that
my
was,
god.
but that's kind of cool because I think last time we were kind of interested in her, and like you say, Ken said, "I'm off to France." After Barbie had gone off to France, we never saw or heard of Raquel again. I was really happy to see her again because
Oh,
she's interesting as a character in these movies go. You know, because she's not a total bit. As we find out a lot about her, don't we?
Raquel is, you're right, she's like a sobering voice of the audience type character, where Barbie can then be really whimsical and buy into everything that's happening. Raquel keeps us quite grounded. That's what I found her character to be here. So Raquel is a massive bitch, basically.
More so than she was last time.
Yeah. Yeah. She fully wants to just jeopardize Barbie. She's so unashamed, like, with her flirtations with Ken, and it's like she's just fabulous. She's just such a fabulous character.
She's a little
The
bitch.
audacity. She's such a bitch.
But because in the last movie there was just this flirtation with Ken, which Ken
Yes.
wasn't really buying, and well, he
Yeah.
wasn't buying at all, was he? And her little trick where she sent the message to make it sound like Ken was splitting up with Barbie, but Barbie didn't really have any interaction with her other than that. But here we
Yeah.
see, she is also an actress, just like Barbie. I didn't know Ken was an actor before. That's new in this one. And
Yeah.
but she's a cowbag to her, and
Yeah. And like, understandably so, because it's very established at the beginning of the movie that she's like, hello, I'm also in this film, and everyone's like, oh, hi, great, you look amazing. And then suddenly Barbie shows up and everyone's like, screw you, here's Barbie. And you're
Yeah.
like, fucking hell, like, and Barbie makes no effort to be like, this is my co-star Raquel, please treat her nicely. It's not like a thing where she's envious of her because, like, she's, Barbie is always nice and Raquel's just jealous. Like, Barbie is fully just like, yeah, I'm the main character of this movie, and what? And then Raquel's like, fuck you, like, I'm also in this movie.
I don't want to go here, but Raquel is a bit like the Meghan Markle, and
Oof.
and Barbie is a bit like the other one. I can't remember her name.
Kate.
Kate, yeah, I get those vibes.
Like, but it's like, in the eyes of the UK press, I think that's what you're saying. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm not saying that Megan is like Raquel and a complete bitch, but it's that there is this one of them is all right until the other one turns up, and
yeah.
Yes, I need to be very clear on that. I am not the Daily Mail.
So Carrie and Taylor are fairies. We know this, but Barbie doesn't. They keep using magic in public and like getting away with it, whatever. They bump into Crystal, who's a photographer at the premiere, and she goes back to Los Angeles, which, again, I didn't Google this, but like, let's say Los Angeles originated in let's say as far back as perhaps the 16th, 17th century when colonization was at its peak.
Yeah.
So did the fairy world also establish itself at that time, or I always assumed that like enchanted places were like ancient and timeless, and yet to call it Los Angeles must imply that it exists around the same time as the induction of Los Angeles. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Well, as Los Angeles is Spanish for angels, isn't it? The city of angels.
City of Angels.
Yeah, I think it's just a bad pun. Hopefully it's been renamed recently. I mean, I gotta say, it's not my favourite pun in a Barbie movie. I was a bit, oh, really? But okay.
I get it. It's fine. I'll allow it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with some thing about how it's not. That's just how the name sounds to our 21st century ears.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. So we're introduced to Princess Graciela, and again, like, this movie makes the effort to have some like intrigue. So during the opening credits, we don't see Barbie until, like, we just see bits and pieces of Barbie, like a hand, her lips, a shoe, and then it's not until the full reveal of the outfit that we get to see the whole of Barbie, which is fun. And then we have a similar thing with Princess Graciela, who is the monarch of Los Angeles, the fairy realm, where she's kept in this sort of shadow and we only see her bottom half or her eyes enlarging because she's given a love potion, and then she immediately falls in love with Ken, and and then she says, you know, I must have him, we're gonna go get him, and I'm gonna marry him. And it's brilliant, it's very intriguing. I think you know, I lapped up the mystery. I was like, what's going on here? Like, why has she been given a potion? Why does she need Ken to marry her? Like, why is this potion heteronormative when this movie is not?
And what's in it for Crystal?
Yeah, like, she's clearly now our antagonist in a way that sort of Raquel had been set up to be. So what's going to happen with that?
Also, everybody in Barbie's orbit is apparently a fairy. It's apart from Raquel.
Like everyone. So wasting no time, it's a Barbie movie. We got like 1 hour to tell this tale. Barbie's going to confront Raquel. Ken goes to watch, like, really lovely character moments. Like, within 2 minutes, you're endeared to Barbie and Ken's relationship because they just have a fun little bit with a spoon, and it's enough for you to, like, root for them. Barbie stands up for herself, so you root for her as a main character. Ken wants to go support her, be like, oh my god, she's gonna go yell at Raquel, let's go watch this, this is hilarious, this is amazing, like, good for Barbie, like, which is very funny and sweet. And she confronts Raquel, which, again, like, just really, really nice character stuff happening. And then, bam, fairies appear, and they kidnap Ken. And again, very Home Alone, where they establish, like, here's why the two fairies can't follow them into the portal. Here's why the two fairies couldn't immediately get Ken back. Like, they lay everything out enough for me to be like, yeah, I'll buy it. Like, that's fair. You know, I'm not yelling at the movie going, just get on the back of the Eagles and go to Mount Doom. You know, there's, like, none of that. Not that I do that, but you know, the sentiment.
No, I think, but it does take time, and you mentioned it's 75 minutes, right? Hour and 15 minutes long, and it takes time to just head off. This is a movie for 8-year-old girls, by the way, to head off some of the more obvious questions. It's not, you know, it's not watertight, but it does, you know, why Carrie and Taylor can do and can't do what they do is made very clear, and Ken's gone, and it's and
fully kidnapped.
He's yeah, well, we'll get to some of the rules of the game in a minute, I guess.
So in order to get him back, we discovered that the Carrie and Taylor are fairies. Raquel and Barbie have to work together in order to get Ken back, and Raquel is definitely doing it because she fancies Ken, not to help Barbie at this stage.
Except, yeah, but as we find out later, there is something. Her dislike of Barbie is founded on a like of Barbie, and so I think she's still trying. She does things in this movie which are, although she's a little bitch, she still craves Barbie's
touch.
Yeah, right. You're going there, are you?
We're going there.
She craves Barbie's at least her what's the word? It's that Barbie notices
approval.
Her approval.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I think a bit of it's that, and a bit of it is, I mean, does she fancy Ken, or does she fancy Ken because that would annoy Barbie? That's the bit that
she fancies Barbie. Like, she fancies Barbie.
Oh, she's got a huge girl
That's
crush.
what this movie is
Yeah,
about.
yeah, indeed.
It's not a girl crush, Stephen. It's a lesbian crush. She's gay and she fancies Barbie. That is canon.
In your head.
It's canon. So we have to try and get to Los Angeles. We have to go through like a portal. The only remaining open one happens to be in France. And it's just a lovely opportunity for a throwback to fashion fairy tales. We return to Paris for Raquel and Barbie to have enough bonding experiences. This is one of them, and to establish some of the rules, like, oh, we can carry you to fly you, but only because it's dark and we won't be seen. And here's how we get to the fairy realm, etc., etc.
And also just spends a little bit of time saying, "Oh, I came here in the last movie, and
yeah,
what was it, her aunt?
yeah,
Got
my
a
Aunt
place here."
Millicent. This woman that we're about to see, who's now a fairy, is known by my aunt because she came to the fashion show. And before then as well, we go to like a changing room, and basically the implication is that everyone that works in fashion on Earth is a fairy, and they greet each other with this really sweet handshake where they sort of put their hands together in a sort of flutterby fashion and wiggle their fingers, and glitter comes out. And that's how they all know each other are fairies. And they do this very sweet thing where they're like, in order to get to Paris through a portal, we're going to go into this changing room. And they're directed to a particular one, and it seems full. And Barbie's like, well, this one's clearly occupied. We can't go in this one. Haven't you noticed, Barbie, that every time you go to a changing room, there's one stall that's always occupied? It's a fairy portal. And I just think that that's very sweet. It's very fun if you're too old to believe that that's real, but it's also very sweet if you are of an age where you can be like, wow, so every time I go to a changing room in a shop, arguably the worst place you can be in the Western world a lot of the time, and instead you have this charming tale to be like, well, that's occupied. It's because it's a portal to the fairy realm.
And I'm not sure you're going to get this reference, but to me, my headcanon says Mr. Ben, the TV show, Mr. Ben is in this universe.
Oh yeah! Oh my god, the shop run by the man with the hat was like clearly a fairy.
That's right, and Mr. Ben would go into the changing room and he'd go into a fairy flyway and have an adventure. And then come back again. So Mr. Ben, I think, is also potentially a fairy.
Yes! Absolutely love that. That's canon.
That's it.
I've decided.
That's what we want. That's what we want to see in the film. We want a Mr. Ben.
Yeah, Mr. Ben cameo.
Yeah.
Love it. So we then go to Los Angeles and we see that Ken... we're sort of... We know that Princess Graciela is under a love potion. Barbie's given the antidote to this, by the way, by this woman in Paris. So we know that we have a plan. We have a quest and we have a plan. We have to get to Los Angeles, find Ken, rescue him, and break Graciela from this spell. And when we're in the Fairy Kingdom, Ken... Again, we talked last time how Ken was such an enjoyable side character, and he does more of the same here, where he's just such fun, and he's so funny, and he's such a little himbo, and it's just really lovely.
Himbo, he is, because, and these last couple of movies have played around with this in that he is not. I watched a film recently which does this as well, where the guy is the victim. He's oh god, crikey. Right.
Was it Enchanted?
No, it wasn't. But I am going to look at my letterbox, and it literally did this, where the guy was.
And this is the thing, I love it. It's such a trope for fairies to kidnap somebody, and it's always a demon kidnapping a woman to be his bride.
So, I will tell you what it is. It's a Shaw Brothers movie from 1969 called Temptress of a Thousand Faces, and it's a kind of sort of late 60s.
That's what I want my nickname to be.
Sort of man from Uncle theme spy thriller from Hong Kong, but. Basically, the lead character, all the lead characters are women, whether they're goodies or baddies, and and the one of the lead ladies has a boyfriend, but he's a himbo, and he's the one who gets kidnapped all the time. He's the one who always is
Ah,
making the mistake. And the only time he's vaguely heroic is when he has to dress up as a woman.
love
So he has to go basically into drag to clear his girlfriend's name.
it. Oh
It's
my god, I love it.
I really would recommend it to anybody, but it's got that kind of this kind of thing. There's nothing. The guy is perfectly fine. He's not
Hmm.
pathetic or anything like that. It's just
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
women are the strong ones,
Yeah.
and they just flip the roles. And it's a shame that it has to be unusual, but it's really cool when you see it. And that's what Ken's
Yeah.
like in this. He's not unheroic. He's just
No.
not the hero.
And he has his talents, and yeah, I just think it's a really
And
lovely
he's not a wanker or
subversion.
anything. He's not. He doesn't say things like
No.
"Oh, you idiot," and he doesn't question. "Oh dear, I'm captured by fairies." He doesn't ever say, "Well, this can't
Yeah.
be real." So he's. I
Yeah,
like.
he completely accepts his reality. He's just very sweet natured, very lovely, very like again, there's all this discourse online usually in a very like post whatever world where people love to come for Barbie. They love to come for her size measurements and her being a terrible role model for girls. But you know, you're watching these movies and they have been nothing but excellent role models. And this one in particular showcases what you should look for in a boyfriend, what you should look for in a friend, how to navigate friendships, how to communicate. Like, it's honestly riddled with some of the best messaging I've seen in children's feature
Mm.
films. Like, honestly, I was overwhelmed with how I felt. Like, I was sitting here like God, I really feel like I've learned a valuable lesson watching this. Like, so imagine how a 10-year-old feels.
Yeah.
It
No.
was
It's
amazing.
and it's brave enough to. It's not trite. Sometimes
Mm.
sometimes when you get that kind of messaging, it can be really trite. And some of the things that will be talked about later between Barbara and Raquel are complicated,
Yeah.
especially to. And it's not just a. I mean, I know it's a movie for girls. I get that, but some of these, it's nothing to do with what gender you are. It's just about people, and
This is the
especially
thing.
those formative friendships that you have. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a
Yeah.
girl or whatever. These are complicated and difficult questions. And yes, the trite answer is you should have talked about it, but not everybody
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Like it's such a fantastic message. And it applies to everyone as well. Like it applies to Zayn and Graciela. It applies to Barbie and Ken in the previous movie, especially. Like, it's just really good stuff. Really,
Mm.
really good stuff. And I think much like Disney wanted to be when they started calling their movies by adjectives instead of after the main characters' names. These movies do. I know they're Barbie movies, and I know they will be primarily watched by young girls
Mm.
and given and gifted to young girls. But I do not think that a young boy could not find this enjoyable in any world. Like really, and the messaging is still so important.
Mm. Absolutely.
So Zayn, who I briefly mentioned there, is Graciela's ex-boyfriend, and he's like fairy Gaston with like an ethnically ambiguous accent,
Mm.
and he's fabulous again because he comes in and you think he's just going to be Gaston, and he is more three-dimensional than Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Mm.
Zayn is. He's fantastic.
He is because he's like at once he's kind of over the top and antagonistic, and I mean that in the sense that he is an antagonist for Ken to fight against. And
Mm.
but as we get more and more into it, there's layers going on here, and
Mm.
actually he's a decent guy that
He's a
that
really
doesn't
decent
that
guy.
doesn't
He
understand what's going on. Like
exactly.
everybody. So he's also a surrogate for the audience in
Yep.
that sense because he is the least clued in of anybody. But he looks like one of those pricks that you get in this kind of movie that normally we'd lambast.
Yeah.
But it's clever. This movie, its greatest strength to me are are the other characters. So Barbie's great in this.
Yes.
Much
Yeah.
more agency than she had in the previous movie.
Absolutely.
Ken's great for the comic relief, as always.
Love him.
But Raquel and Zayn and Graciela, to a slightly lesser degree, are really complicated and interesting.
They are. They're layered, and the all of the information and their character development is like unveiled gradually over the course of the film. Nobody's two dimensional. It's all really nice stuff. As you say, Zayn, you expect him to almost die. I mean, they don't die because it's a Barbie movie, but like if this was Disney, he would die at the end of it. But no, actually, he's incredibly misunderstood. He genuinely loves Graciela. It's not vanity. It's not self. It's not a selfish behavior. He's just as confused as anybody else. And actually, his relationship with Ken becomes one of the, again, a really sweet, endearing friendship because the two have the same values. They're both, very early on, Ken aligns himself with Zayn, even though Zayn keeps trying to take it out on Ken, where he's like, I
Challenge you to a duel.
And Ken's like, no, I don't want to marry her. I think you should marry her. I think that's a good idea. And like very quickly after we've had a very fun duel, which Graciela is more into than anybody else, again, because she's under a love potion, Zayn is like him and Ken have this look at one point, and it didn't need to happen. They didn't need to animate that, but like it's just this wordless.
It's a bromance
of sad sort of agreement, and it's just magnificent. It's really mature,
and it's like, I don't know what the opposite of the Bechdel test is, but here's two guys here having a conversation about stuff that isn't about Barbie. Well,
I mean, that's just every movie ever made. But I take
well,
your point.
you know what I mean. In the context of a Barbie movie, how many Barbie movies have two lead males that are just not one's bossing the other one about? Mm-hmm. Yeah, normally there might be a bad guy or something, and he'll have some. Yeah. There'll be the king, or he'll be the villain of the piece, and the only people he's talking to is his underlings. Zayn and Ken are equals, coming from a completely different place. It's good.
It's good stuff. You're right. We've not seen that before. It's really interesting, and I think that's what kept me going in this one. Like it was really fresh, and it was really cool. And it was so gay, and I loved it. So they make it to Fairyland as quickly as you'd hope. Like, there's no dicking about. So we're in Los Angeles, and then we have some really wonderful moments where, like, I barely have any notes because I was just really enjoying myself. We have a Matrix reference in this movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to go over the head.
2011, we have a Matrix reference in a kids movie, and I don't know if that says to me that they were trying to appeal to adult audiences, like parents. I don't know if they thought it would genuinely be funny, because it just entered the zeitgeist, and like Shrek has done it by this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's still Matrix references happen today. I guess it just is a part of, like you say, zeitgeist, pop culture. It just is what it is, and
I didn't mind it.
People might not even understand the reference anymore, but they'll just understand it. What I will so remember 2 movies ago. What was it called? A mermaid? What was it called? The one that we didn't like. The first
Mermaid Tale.
Yeah. So they do redo a bit of that, where I don't understand why a shop exists to sell people. Like, I didn't understand why an underwater shop would sell mermaid tails. I don't really understand why a shop exists to sell wings. Although, actually, it does make sense. Although no one seems to have to pay for anything. So, again, what to me this is an example of something they didn't do quite right in that film, they do right here, because they explain why it exists.
Yes.
Yeah? Because the owner of the shop actually was a human who married a male fairy. And therefore, she would understand why she needs wings and why you'd like to have fake wings. They didn't explain any of that. Or they didn't give a background reason. No, and
And what a brilliant partnership. Like we have this couple who are incredibly cool and memorable, and it sort of ties into the fact that, oh shit, like, we're being introduced to this idea and this theme of a human marrying a fairy. Is Are we going to be able to rescue Ken, or are we being introduced to this idea
and
because la la la,
yeah, and again, just something really lovely in this is it's the male that's a fairy,
Mm.
not the girl, and he's black, and
Yeah.
and he's middle-aged.
Yes, they're both like middle-aged, like black fairies.
Yeah.
And like this is the first time I think properly that we've had fully fledged characters that are like that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. But I even criticised, one of the sacred cows. I criticised Three Musketeers because the mother
Mm.
looked like she was Barbie's older sister by about a
Yeah.
year, and not someone that was maybe 20 years older than her.
Yeah.
In this one, people look older,
Yeah, these people are actually older.
and it just flips. It would have been easy for her to be in the fairy, and he was another male
Yeah,
that got
completely.
seduced by a fairy. But no, that's not what's happened here. These two have genuinely fallen in love, and
Mm.
actually, what it also shows you is this thing about being. So there's this rule: if a human falls in love with or marries a fairy, you have to live in Los Angeles for the rest of your life, which to Ken is a horrendous idea, but to
Yeah.
these two, well, that's wonderful. That was
Yeah.
that was. It's not even the case that was a sacrifice worth making. That just came with the patch, and so again,
Yeah.
it's way more complicated. I'm not saying it's like three-dimensional or four-dimensional, but it's definitely more two-dimensional than anything we usually get in this kind of story, Barbie movie or not. It,
Yeah.
it's usually it doesn't give you the complexity of the options.
Definitely. Agreed. There's a fantastic running gag of Graciela just not getting Ken's name right, like once. She calls him every other name under the sun, and they really commit to the bit, which I respect.
They really, really do, yeah.
So like I'm a fan of that because I love that she's a passion fairy. I love that she's entirely in pink. I love that she sort of represents everything that in these earlier Barbie movies we've come to associate with Barbie. She's very whimsical, she's very passionate, she's very emotional, and so she's very erratic. And even though she's under a love potion, it doesn't feel out of character for her to just be like, Ken, I love you, we will be married at midnight, but she gets his name wrong like every single time. I just think that's brilliant. I just think it's absolutely wonderful because it's 100% the kind of thing that I would do in real life.
If you were under the effects of a love potion, of course.
Yeah, sure. Genius ponies. Get some My Little Ponies out there with wings on to sell to the kids.
I am gonna.
I'll allow it.
I really, really like this movie.
They're great, isn't it?
But
yeah. Oh.
I didn't like the ponies.
No.
I didn't like their visuals. There's something.
Yeah,
There's something a bit like they were made out of Play-Doh or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
And and they're not the most egregious winged horses that we've
No.
met before.
No.
They're not sexy horses.
No.
But I did.
Certainly not the sexiest horse we've ever seen.
And yeah, I get it. They were for selling something, and we always have to remember that's what the Barbie movie's for. But yeah, a minus quarter of a point for them for me. But if you like them, fair enough. I'm not going to criticise you
I
for
thought
it.
they would. Like, I could totally see the capitalism shining through, but I was like, they're cute. I like them.
However, what they do again, they actually drive character development, right? So the fact that they're stupid flying ponies is one thing, and that could have been it. We've seen this before in other movies.
Yeah.
Some mode of transport that gets the characters from A to B, and that just moves the plot along. But this does more, because what it shows is that Raquel is actually a really quality,
Horse riding.
equestrian.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something she can do better than Barbie.
Yes.
And she shines. And so yes, Raquel is a little bitch, but Raquel doesn't actually understand how good she is at some things, and that she's better than Barbie at some things, like we all are.
And it's Barbie that champions her, and it's again really lovely. We get to see the layers of their friendship where they've known each other since they were kids, which is weird, but like fine, like I believe it. And she's like, Raquel, you can do this. You can lead us. You were amazing at horse school that we went to. And she's like, what? You don't like, how do you remember me at horse school? You barely noticed I exist. And Barbie's like, you put shaving cream in my riding helmet. And Raquel's like, well, yeah, but like, I didn't think you like knew who I was. And like, isn't that just fantastic? Like, it's so funny and it's so real and it's so like, no wonder Barbie has this very like reasonable but understated sort of dislike of Raquel. And no wonder Raquel is so desperate for Barbie's attention, because she's never got it, because she's always lashed out in the wrong ways and Barbie's never reciprocated, and yet Barbie always noticed and is willing to acknowledge that she's the better rider, and now Raquel has to step up to the challenge. And then we get a really tense scene of them trying to avoid these like spiral candy canes. I don't know, it's a Barbie movie. Like imagine what they have to dodge. Like, yeah, it's that. It's like some Dr. Seuss type candy cane forest or something.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Again, this I liked what they did with the character stuff, and I get the A to B, and I get you need the threat and the peril. Some of the imagination wasn't in this area, but it doesn't. But it doesn't matter. It's like,
ooh, the swirly whirlies. If we get hit by the swirly whirlies, we'll be thrown off course.
Hi, I've just joined Rainmaker Animation. What can I do today? Oh crap! What can you draw? I can do swirly whirlies. Yeah, let's just do that. We'll hide it. It's the summer intern's job.
It was great. It was really tense. I'm not gonna say it was How to Train Your Dragon level of like flying scenes, but
God,
like
no.
it sort of crawled slowly along the ground in order for that to run, I guess.
But the thing is, again, I'll just sort of reiterate, it's the fact that yes, this is the sort of scene that you have to do in there. Yes, it gets them into the castle or whatever it is. But the important thing is, it's not just about that. It's about character relationships.
Yes.
This is if this was fucking Lord of the Rings, everyone would be all over it.
And they are all over it.
Yeah.
And this is enemies to lovers. This is what this movie is. And we get into the castle, and this whole movie. Oh, we forgot to mention, Taylor and Carrie were banished. So there's stakes immediately going into Los Angeles. There's stakes beyond the fact that we're sneaking humans in, beyond the fact that we need to reclaim a kidnapped Ken. Not only that, our guides and people that are from this world are actually banished, and if they're caught, they will be thrown in the dungeon. We don't know why they're banished, so that's really mysterious and really
and they don't know either. That's the other thing. There's one day Graciela banished them.
Just banished them, and we don't know why, and it's brilliant. So of course the second they're caught, and so this whole time we've heard like, oh well, you want to avoid the fairy dungeon, you don't want to get to the fairy dungeon, last thing we want to end up in is the fairy dungeon. So the second they get caught, she's like, throw them in the fairy dungeon. I think I said out loud to my screen, I was like, oh yeah, let's see the fairy dungeon. Like, I was so excited to see it, and it lived up to my expectations. It did not disappoint. I was like, yeah, that's what I expect a fairy dungeon to look like. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. It's just,
now you know.
Really fun. It's really good stuff. They put them in these sort of, in Pirates of the Caribbean 2, right at the beginning when they're on that cannibal island, they're put in these like big balls made out of human bones, and they're like hanging from the air, and they there's a ball full of all of our main characters and there's a ball full of like red shirts,
Yeah.
and they both have to like swing and climb. It's basically those balls, but they're like pink and glittery. And we have a wonderful thing where they try and escape. So one of them's got a magic handbag like Mary Poppins, and she can bring out different bits and pieces. So they attempt to escape the sphere, which is brilliant because of course she would. You know, they don't just resign themselves to their fate. So she keeps pulling things out of the handbag with an accompanying pun, which is fun enough in itself. And then Raquel calls her out. She's like, she goes in to pull something out of the bag, and she's like, oh, we'll see if we can get a home run with this one. And Raquel's like, stop. Just stop.
Yeah, because she pulls out a baseball bat, doesn't she?
And
Yeah.
Raquel calls her out. She's like, it's going to be a baseball bat, isn't it? And she's like, yeah. It's so good.
It is.
Because at that point, I was starting to be like, oh, come on now, Taylor. I am 31. This is getting a bit tiresome. But Raquel called it for me. And then it was even fun. It was brilliant. It was so good. Really well timed. Really good stuff. I really fancy Raquel. Like, she's so nicely designed. Her whole look is so, like, cool and, like, beautiful. I just really wanted to shout out to her, like,
don't you? I'm not
face.
going to say I fancy her, because that would be weird, being as she's an animated thing. But don't you think? I think in all the brunette Barbie friends, people close to her, always seem to be like really.
Prettier?
Well, no, maybe not. Maybe prettier isn't just it, but they've always got something else about their style. I think I've talked about others before. You know, like there was the Toya Wilcox baddie
Yes.
from I can't remember the name. There've been so many of these bloody
The
movies.
third Fairytopia.
Yeah, where they do interesting things with their hair or with their costumes, and it's always someone who's not blonde.
And this is the thing, I think anyone that's not got the Barbie face, we're so accustomed to the Barbie face, that if there's any change from that, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Like, that's really interesting. I'm really drawn to that because it's not the Barbie face. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the Barbie face. And it's a good face. And it's great. So,
But
yeah.
but I just think they do much more interesting things with
Yeah,
the non-blonde characters.
definitely.
Which is good, because you don't want them just to be clones with different hair.
Exactly. You don't want them to be Disney characters and their mums in the last few movies. Exactly. It's like the same face. So then, again, Raquel and Barbie have a whole conversation about their friendship and their relationship, and they apologize and they forgive each other, and their wings become bigger and turn into the colours of the bisexual flag and the pansexual flag. And I don't know what you expect me to take from that, other than that they're girlfriend and girlfriend now. I don't know what you want from me.
I have to say I hadn't seen that codifying in the wing colour until you've just said it now. I gotta be honest, I wasn't even aware of the bisexual flag until a few weeks ago when I watched a documentary about the pride flags and a lot of the controversy and how they grew up. So yes, you're absolutely right, because it was oddly pastel, wasn't it? That was the thing. I'm not going to go so far as saying they're girlfriend and girlfriend, but I will say it was fascinating that Barbie admitted there was fault on her side.
Yes.
This wasn't all about Raquel's misunderstanding. It was a lot to do with Raquel? I've just invented a Russian man in here. Raquel made a lot of wrong assumptions about things, but Barbie said, maybe I should have been nicer at first principles, and maybe I've reacted to things that you've done in the wrong way. And I thought that takes two, right? Again,
honestly, it's
complex.
so mature, it's so complex, it's such a good lesson in, like, hey, not everything is black and white, and everything's nuanced, and sometimes you'll do good and sometimes you'll do bad, and as long as you're honest and open and communicative and apologetic when you need to be, then then love can conquer all, and they literally hug and free themselves,
and
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 that.
yeah, and that makes sense because remember,
Again, I don't know what you meant. I don't know what you meant to take from that. This is a fucking fairy tale, and they just like
well,
their true love broke the curse. Like, what do you want from me?
you can have that. What I will also say is that these things are called fury spheres, right? And
Yeah,
they're basically, I think the idea is, they don't quite say it, but I guess the idea is that any anger of you're being trapped by your own anger and fury, right? Or in this case,
I
Graciella's
guess
anger and
so.
fury.
Yeah.
And the reason they break free is because they diffuse that. That must have been really strong. Between the enmity between the two is diffused. Yes, and then they suddenly get these super wings, echoes of Fairytopia. When was that the
Yeah.
one with Barbie
Yeah.
knowing echoes of that? So these fake wings have become real. A lot of that happens in this world. Fake
Yeah.
tails become real, stuff like that. But I'm okay with it because they genuinely had. It wasn't fixed by them doing something, by getting
Mhm.
some magic potion, by achieving some physical goal. It was achieved by them sitting down and having a conversation. And
Yeah.
that is what the real world is like, wings or not.
Yes. 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 It's amazing. It's so good. And then they work together to try and break Graciela out of her love spell and get Ken back. Ken, who's literally chained up at the altar. And again, really good stuff. Like, Ken refuses to say I do. And Graciela literally like ventriloquists him, like forces open his mouth with magic and puts her voice in his. So never, like, do you know what? Just like constantly coming up with reasons just to like, look, like Ken doesn't want to do this, and we're making
Mm.
that as obvious as we can. And just really good stuff. And that's when he has his moment with Zayn, who tries to call objection again during the middle of the wedding, and she's not having it. So Ken and Zayn have this look where they're like, for fuck's sake, like, this sucks, man. And it's so good. It's so good. And then Raquel's like distracting everyone and trying to like get things away so then Barbie can go after Graciela and pour the potion on her. And obviously Crystal, who's our main antagonist, the reason that she got Graciela under a love spell and made him fall for Ken is because she fancies Zayn.
But
And
of course,
she needs, you know, and she spends the whole movie being like really obvious about it and like, Zayn, why don't you like love me instead? And he doesn't, which again is a really lovely trait for
it
Zayn to
it
have.
yeah, and it's a bit sad for her. It's never really explained why she's in the human world as a reporter. Is that what she is? A reporter? She's got
Yeah, she was like a photographer. I think she was
that's
just
right.
trying to find someone that Graciela could fall in love with.
Right. Okay. This has been her
Um,
plan since the beginning. Okay.
yeah.
Um. Yeah. Again, if there's anybody that's slightly underwritten in this film, I would say
Mm,
it is Crystal because her motivation is just that she fancies Zayn, which
yeah.
compared to some of the
But
other complex things that we've
yeah.
applauded, that's a bit. Meh.
I know it's perhaps quite obvious and people like to avoid it or look down on it because it feels cliched, but you know, cliches have got to come from
Oh,
somewhere,
for
like
sure.
especially at this age, which like we're meant to be teenagers but we're highlighting it into
Oh,
children,
hormones and
like,
crashes and yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, and like it's, you know, it's not dissimilar from a lot of experiences that I've had in my life, whether through my own actions or friends' actions, or I've heard about stories of people that I know that have done similar things. Like, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this is a thing that women act like, or men act like. Like, people are very, you know, it's just
People can
it's
be,
very
yeah.
boring to be like, oh, she fancies a guy and that's why she's the villain or whatever. But there's so many other things happening here. It's not just about that. The reason we usually get annoyed when that happens is because often that's all you give us,
Yes.
male writers,
Yeah.
female characters. That's all we ever are. That's all we ever have. Whereas here, there's more to it, and so, you know, you can take a step back and be like, well, you know, that does happen. I'm not saying that they drug people, but like, you know,
Mm.
those sort of emotions and feelings and actions do sort of happen. So that's fine. I'm down with it. They lift the curse from Graciela, who it's so wonderful. She's genuinely like, where am I? Like, what is going on? Like, she can barely remember the previous 3 days, and then she suddenly remembers it all. Very
Yeah,
convenient.
she picks it all up very
Yeah.
quickly.
And we learn why they were banished, and it was because they dropped her as a friend. And so then they get to have a conversation about, like, well, no, you were always really busy with princess duties, so we stopped inviting you because we just assumed that you wouldn't be able to come. How relatable is that?
And again,
How relatable is that?
how
I
many?
just wanted to be invited.
Yeah. And how many times? Well, do I have to say it? It's people having a conversation would have fixed everything. And there's a lot. Believe you me, 90% of fucking films could be solved if people had to talk with each other in the first 10 minutes.
Oh my god,
But
yes.
but in this case, it is literally the theme. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a plot hole. It's a friendship doesn't just happen. You have to work at it.
Yes, and what a fantastic lesson. And it's so good. And they're like, they admit that perhaps they shouldn't have done that. And she understands why they might have done that. Like, everybody's reasonable. Everybody listens to each other. Even Crystal is a bit like, look, I know what I did was wrong. I just acted out of sheer desperation. And, you know, it's fine because Zayn clearly loves you even through all of these things. So I accept that I don't have a shot with him, and I'll take whatever punishment you've got. And the punishment is only to, like, clean up after the wedding.
Again, though, do you
Hardly a
remember?
punishment.
Well, it was the same punishment that they got at the end of the Three Musketeers. There is a William Lau. Obviously, I know he's not the writer, but he obviously likes people
It's like,
to.
fuck cleaning up.
That's the worst. But again, imagine you're an 8 or a 9-year-old girl. What's the worst job your parents can give you?
Yeah, that's fair.
Tidy up your room.
Very true.
8 or a 9-year-old, anybody, or indeed a 51-year-old man.
Which probably is the worst message that this gives. Like, Snow White made a love of cleaning. So don't put children off their chores. It's good for character development. So Graciela marries Zayn. Everybody attends the wedding. They have a lovely time. Then, it's so good. Raquel, very understandably, is like, I'm going to tell everyone about Los Angeles. And everyone's like, no, don't do that. And she's like, but it would be so good for everyone. And you see her point, as silly as it is, and as much as you're morally, as the audience, being like, no, when you learn of a secret enchanted realm, you keep it a secret. The movie's literally called A Fairy Secret, Raquel. But she's very understandably like, this is going to do so many hits on our Insta, except not because it's 2011. This is going to be so many hits on our Flickr, on our Bebo,
Tumblr,
on our Facebook.com page, where we still send love. And
I'm going to tell Tom on MySpace.
yeah. Oh, the good old days. And everyone's like, no, don't do that. And Barbie's like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. And then Graciella's like, yeah, I mean, maybe you'll wake up tomorrow and not remember a thing. And they're like, what a weird thing to say. That's really funny. So you know that they're going to, like, slip something in their drinks or whatever.
But I also like the fact that Raquel, yes, she's made her peace with Barbie, and obviously they're in a relationship now that Ken will never know about. But the fact that she's not changed her personality 180 degrees, right? She's still a little bit sneaky, a little bit selfish. You know, it's not necessarily coming from a place of evil or anything like that, but let's face it,
very human traits.
Lots of us would not be able to keep this a secret.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't keep secrets at all. Fuck knows what I'd do if I was presented with a whole alternate universe of fucking fairy doorways in every H&M.
I would be like, you have to erase my memory, because I will tell somebody. Like, I won't do it. I won't go to YouTube and do a live stream and be like, everyone check this out. But I will tell as many people as I can physically get.
Oh, I'd be on the phone. I'd be on the phone to you straight away. I said, look, you're not going to believe this, right? Because you'd be the only person to believe me anyway.
Yeah.
And then you tell somebody, and the next thing you
I
know, we're all
fully would tell everyone, and then the secret bit, and then somebody else would do a YouTube live stream, and I
yeah.
imagine that that's what Raquel's getting to, so that's fine. They and I was like, oh no, like if they make it all a dream, then that means that all of the character development that we've gone through is undone. But at the same time, it was established so early on in this movie that this land had to be kept a secret, and like human beings are like technically not allowed there, that you've justified it enough that I'm like, actually, yeah, you probably should wipe their memories. And then of course that's fine, it sort of resets us going forward for a new movie where we can not necessarily learn all these lessons again, because hopefully there'll be some remnants, but I get it. I get why you would do it. It's a shame, like the Pokemon movie where it's like, oh no, war is bad, I guess, and then it's like time is rewound or whatever, and you're like, cool, everybody just unlearned that lesson. But they do wake up and they think it's all a dream. However, we then have an additional diner scene where everyone's like, it's so weird, like you were there and you were there and you were there, who the hell are you? Like, sorry, I can't do that scene now without quoting The Simpsons. But you know, it's very Wizard of Oz and everybody remembers everyone was there and some weird stuff happened. Then Raquel sidles up to them and is like, hey, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm your friend now. And Barbie's like, what? I don't think so. And Raquel's like, I would really like to be though. And Barbie's like, oh.
It's almost as
okay.
if Barbie hasn't had her personality updated as much
Yeah.
as Raquel has. But they're okay, and they have a
But they're
no,
absolutely
sorry, they
fine.
have breakfast, don't they?
They have breakfast,
At
yes.
Wally's.
And then the two fairies come down and they're like, we're off. And again, I didn't even clock this, and it took Raquel being like, why are you telling me? I have no idea who any of you are. And I'm like, oh yeah. Well done, movie. Like, I forgot that. So like, thank you for reminding me, because that was quite funny. So they head back to Los Angeles to reconnect with an old friend, and the rest of them stay and have breakfast. And other than Carrie and Taylor turning to the camera and looking me dead in my eye and going, shh, before heading into the portal, which I didn't care for, this was a banger. It was so good.
Do you know the only thing, apart from the horses, the only thing that I didn't like is that these two films are like a duology. We're never going to see these characters again. I
Oh
would
no.
have, yeah,
Really?
these are, yeah. Because obviously up next we've got the one I'm going to be most disappointed by
Oh yeah.
in the Charm School, and then it's
What?
Mermaid Tale 2 where they go back to there.
Oh no.
So yeah, these two films stand alone, and
That's
I'd have loved a third
what
one.
a joy it's been. Yeah, I really think they were onto something really strong here. Like I'm really, really excited by
Yeah,
these characters, really excited by where we were gonna go. Like another story where we start off with everyone being friends rather than having to force it. But then, you know,
and maybe the arcs are completed, but they
yeah,
and I do quite like the way they're not really. It's not really a sequel. It's just the same characters in this.
yeah, same universe as it were.
It's yeah, or slightly different. I don't know how to explain it, but
Mm,
the first movie must have happened.
yeah,
But then, if the first movie happened, then why would Barbie be quite so surprised about the existence of fairies? Because
yeah.
she's already met. I forget what they're called in the previous movie. They're not called fairies, are they? They're called.
Oh yeah, they're called like glitter bugs or something. Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I mean.
yeah,
So that's why
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
quite the same, but it's just lovely. And we'll get to our ranking in a minute. But
Mm.
but as a pair, any of the movies that have been clearly sort of related to each other, like the Fairytopia movies,
Yeah,
or I think it's only the Fairytopia movies actually up to now. But this is so strong as a
yeah,
duology,
yeah.
and I was thinking because I think we put Fashion Fairy Tale quite high,
We did.
and I'm thinking, is this better? Is this the
Yes,
same?
it's better. I'd say it's better. You know where I want to put this?
Go on.
I want to put this at number 4.
Okay.
Is that so Fashion Fairy Tale was in at 5 and
Yeah.
Barbie Mariposa was in at 4. I
Yeah.
want to put it above Mariposa, which will push Fairy Tale down to 6.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. I'd want them together. I don't know why. I
Right.
thought Fairy Tale was a bit higher. I think this is better
Yeah.
than Fashion Fairy Tale. It's got all the good things about Fairy Tale,
Yeah.
but more so because obviously with Fairy Tale, Barbie lacked agency in her own story.
Yeah.
And whilst the Ken stuff was fun, this sort of separate planes, trains, and automobiles story he was having off on the side,
Mhm.
this brings everyone together. I think Raquel
Yes.
is a
Yeah.
brilliant addition
Oh,
to
she's
the mythos.
fantastic.
I think
Yep.
even talking to you about it has made me understand even more. And it's just the maturity of
Mhm.
the storytelling, and not that it's it's not an 18 or anything. It's the fact that people talk to each other and things get
Yeah.
resolved by talking and not by exposition.
Yep.
Um, what's 1, 2, and 3? Just remind me.
So number 1 is Barbie and the Three Musketeers, the
Yeah,
feminist classic. Barbie is the Princess and the Pauper is in at 2. Then it's Barbie Fairytopia Mermaidia, the first true LGBTQ plus tale in the Barbie franchise. And I would argue that not since Mermaidia have we seen such a fabulous gay tale as we see in A Fairy Secret. So I think it works well that we pair them together, in my
I'm
opinion.
I'm almost I'd almost put this at number 3.
Oh,
I think it's that. The more I talk about it, the more I'm talking myself up. However,
yeah. I know what you mean, and I think I could be convinced because it's stronger in a lot of aspects than Mermaidia. Mermaidia was definitely pushed up because I was so excited with what we were seeing, and I think the Raquel Barbie enemies to lovers is stronger than the Barbie whatever the mermaid's name was in
yeah,
that.
and but Mermaidia got high up because it built on Fairytopia. So
Yes.
so it it maybe didn't fulfill all your original requirements of it. Yeah, I'd settle on 4,
You want to push it to 3 though?
but I do really think the more and more I really enjoyed it when I watched it,
Yeah, I
and mu-
really enjoyed it.
and I was really happy to see these people again because I really enjoyed the last one. I had problems with it. This one, I've got one problem. I don't like the horses, and that's
Yeah,
just a
that's
design
not really a
thing.
problem.
That's just a design thing. That's not even.
Yeah,
I don't mind their
that's a
existence,
given.
and the fact that it adds more character to Raquel. I think this is genuinely funny.
It is.
Yeah,
It really
you've
is. It's laugh
referenced a
out loud
couple of
funny.
running jokes, and it, not just Ken's name, not just what's coming out the handbag every time. There's it's got a lovely little twinkle and a wink to it the whole way through.
Mm.
I would put this at number 3 if I can drag you
Yeah.
along
No,
with
it's
me.
there. Yep, you've dragged me. I've dragged it. It's in at number 3.
And
How exciting! I really thought that the top 3 would be impenetrable, and yet here
and we
we are.
keep saying, oh,
Yeah,
no films are ever gonna, we're now gonna be looking at shitty movies
yeah,
for the
and
rest
they're
of the
just
time.
getting better.
I mean, apart from Mermaid Tale, which really was disappointing,
Oh god, it was awful.
um, we've been on a run. Three
Honestly,
Musketeers, Fashion Fairy Tale, Fairy Secret, 3 out of 4 have been absolute
they're all in
bangers.
the top 10. Yeah.
Obviously, we've had a few clunkers before that, and
Yes.
I keep looking forward and thinking, well, that's going to be crap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And obviously, yeah, well, Princess Charm School's next. We'll see where that
Yeah, we'll
goes.
see. I don't think we're gonna get the Black Widow story,
No,
but
I
we
know we're
will.
not. I watched the trailer for it. Oh, update! This
Oh,
DVD worked, which
oh,
means
nice.
so I think Fashion Fairy Tale only played the Universal logo, but this one
Yeah.
did the whole thing.
Oh,
So
good. I
I
have to
think
say, I do think they are all on Netflix now. So if you're watching along at home, I think you're good to go going forward
these
for
later
Netflix.
ones are, yeah,
Yeah.
we've just been through a few which are hard to track down, and I've had to buy them off like Google Play, which is not something
Yeah,
I've
which
done before,
sucks.
or other ways watching it cut up on YouTube into 16 parts with
Yeah.
with Arabic subtitles and
Oh
adverts in between every
God.
16 parts. I've done that as
Oh,
well.
the effort that you're putting into this. I'm so pleased.
Oh, what did you, yeah, the pile of DVDs that I do have, everyone questions it.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
goes,
bet.
I've had people come around and look at each other and say, why has he got them? And if you're listening now, because I told you why, hello. But yeah, no, what an absolute freaking surprise these last two movies have been.
Yeah, really like
Even their
knocked it out of the
names,
park.
I wasn't
Yeah.
even, their names sounded anodyne and, God, really?
Very, very clever, like very, very generic. I mean, come on, even the poster. The poster looks awful because it's that horrible
Mm.
cartoonish design of Barbie. I will say that her wings are the color of the pride flag. So there is that. But the Fashion Fairy Tale poster as well just looks like compared to what's come before. But actually, the stories within them are so strong and they're so well put together.
Yeah,
Really
no,
well done, Barbie. I have no words. Like, just absolutely hats off to you.